Hey YouTube, welcome back to my channel. I have an update and some tips and tricks for you, starting with, as you know, or maybe you don't know if you're new to my channel, I worked for St. Louis City. So I was in public practice. So all the cases that if the city was sued for anything, depending on what the suit was, for like personal injury, for example, I was defending the city. So that's public. Since September 1st, I moved to private practice. That means I now work for a firm. So it is October 13th today. So I've been working for about 6 weeks. And I have to say, it's not that great of a change for me. It is a change, but I like it. And a lot of people were kind of like, oh, the switch over. So for those of you that will or do work in criminal law, I will tell you, if you switch from criminal law to private practice civil litigation, it is a difference for you. But for me, I was doing civil litigation for the city, civil defense. So when I switched to private, the only things that I had to worry about were billables and basically managing my time a little better. But as you guys know from previous videos, when I was in law school, I am good on time management. And I'm really good at keeping everything organized. That is one thing that I will say. I'm not going to say that you can't do it, but what I've noticed when a lot of people talk to me, either they left and couldn't do it because they just couldn't get the time management down, or the people that have a hard time, they don't have time management and organization. So those are two things you really need to hone in on if you're going to go to private practice. So let's talk a little bit about what I've learned, and so far the things that I'm kind of adapting to, and things that I would say if you're going in, or if you know right now as a third-year law student that you're going to be a new associate at a firm, this is for you. So organization, I already talked about that, especially your cases and your due dates. When you first get to a firm, there's work to be done. Otherwise, they wouldn't have needed to hire a new person. So what they're going to do is different partners are going to come in and they're going to be like, hey, how's it going? Do you have some cases yet? And they are ready to give you some cases. They're ready to give you some work. What you need to do is you need to have, first, find your way of doing things. But here's the thing. I have 2 different notepads. And they stay on my desk. So when people come in, I'm ready to go. So the first notepad is not that big. It's a small version, because when they're talking, try to get good at this. I'm really good at being able to write and look at them, because if you're writing and you're like this and they're talking, sometimes they stop because they think that you need to catch up. And so I just want people to be able to freely come in. Now, I will say another tip that somebody told me was, whenever somebody comes in, they actually get their phone and start voice memo, so that in case they don't write fast enough, they didn't miss anything that they said. I don't necessarily need that, but and plus you have to be quick on the draw and get the voice memo going. So I don't necessarily want a partner to come in and me grabbing my phone, flipping through my apps to find voice memo. So that's why I do it this way. So I take the little notepad and I'm writing, and it's down, and I'm like, and I'm pretty good at keeping a line and keeping it, and every now and then I'll look down to make sure I move to the next line. But try to get good at that, and it kind of goes seamlessly, really. And I don't care how I'm writing, because I can read it, but you have to dictate it over to something else right when you do it. Otherwise, sometimes later you'll be like, what the heck was I trying to say? So, okay, they're talking to me, they're explaining the case, they give you a little bit of background, and then they say what they want you to do. Some things that you need to get out of the way. 1, do you know the client number or the matter number? And that is because billables. Everything you do, you're going to have to bill. So when you start working on this case and drafting documents for this case, you need to bill for that, which means you need to put that number in. So you need to ask that question. Client number, matter number, one or the other, or both is great. The other question is, when would you like this by? What you're going to get into if you don't do this, you're going to get a bunch of stuff handed to you, and then you're not going to know how to prioritize it. It's going to feel overwhelming. As you know, I like to make lists of lists of lists to make sure I have things together and I don't feel overwhelmed. So organize your cases and organize your due dates. So whenever you finish writing that and they leave the office, then you take that and you write it on a bigger thing, and you write it where it's succinct and you can actually clearly see what's being, the work that's being given to you. And then out to the side in red, I like to put the date so that I know when I look down at the list of crap that I have to do, which one goes first. So make sure you do that. If they don't give you a date, ask them something like, when is the answer due? If they ask you to do research for the answer, well, when is the answer due? And if they say, for example, today is the 13th, if they say the answer is due on the 20th, your deadline needs to be like the 14th or the 15th or the 16th. That is because they are busy and you do not want to hand them something a day. I don't like to hand them 2 days before it's due. I like to hand them 3 or 4 days before it's due or more, so that they can go ahead and have time to edit and not have to rush and edit because I gave them something. Technically, to me, it's last minute. So find out what works for you. These are my biggest tips, but find out what works for you and get organized fast. Do not get in there and you're like, oh, for the first month, they're not really serious, or they don't really have a problem if your billables are low. No, go in trying to get your billables at the number that you have to get, that you have to reach. And if that means staying late for the first month and figuring things out, then you need to do that, because it's going to take you a little longer to do things because you're also trying to get acclimated to a new system and a new writing style. So if you have a family, give them the heads up and do what you have to do. Those are my biggest tips for starting as an associate. Just get organized, get your cases and your due dates, figure out what works for you, and get organized fast. Now I'm going to do another video explaining billables specifically, because that's a monster on its own. But I hope this helps. If you have any questions, you already know, leave it in the comments below, or you have anything else you want to ask me about or tell me to talk about in one of these videos, let me know and I do my best to respond. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video.